When we got some people in the building, let's make some noise. I mean, that's my second time watching it, and I've just noticed so much other details that I didn't see the first time, and I've got so many questions, like my brain is buzzing, and shout out to everyone in the chat room. I asked for questions, we've got loads, keep them coming. If you just joined us and you missed any part of it, we're going to keep the documentary on loop, so anytime throughout the night, you better check it out. Don't forget, we've got an amazing 4-hour after party. We've got TSHA, we've got Afrodeutsche, we've got Dance System, and we've got Tim Reaper performing. But this is all about the documentary. We want to jump into it, we want to chat about it, and I've got an amazing panel of guests with me. So we have got Hugo Jenkins, who is a MOBO award-nominated director, known for implementing a strong sense of authenticity, as you've seen in his videos. He's worked with the likes of J Hus, Ty Dolla $ign, George Fitzgerald, Marabou State, Heady One, and of course, the man behind this amazing documentary. Welcome, Hugo. We have also got TSHA, London-based producer. Super exciting. I've been privy to be able to watch your journey, and it's just up, 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 up. Signed to Ninja Tune, co-signed by Bonobo. You know, I think as a DJ, as a producer, exceptional, very bright future. And we have a legend, Alfred Deutsch in the building, British-born, Ghanaian, Russian, German composer, producer, DJ based in Manchester, productions from classical solo piano. We got a little treat in there, didn't we? Just a little bit, through to techno, house, and electro. So welcome, guys. Thank you so much for being with us. So let's start with you, Hugo. So many questions coming in, you know, as people were watching it, like I said. So, I mean, you, through your work, you capture and you document culture. What compels you to want to tell a story?
I suppose, shall I speak into this?
Mm-hmm. Yes, please. That would help.
I suppose with this one, it's such a massive story, and it's I mean, just through reading for a bit and through like kind of my previous experiences and what I knew about rave before, and it's not really something that you can really boil down to like to a small story, I guess. It's just this is so rich. It's like but I guess what we tried to do here, what I found interesting with this is like we're kind of at a point in time now that we've never been at before, where we're unable to see each other, and we're all realizing like the power of human connection in general and how important that is. And I feel like for me, that was the kind of lens that I was looking at rave culture through, because I think it's quite easy to think about it as something that is like this kind of either just loads of people getting off their tits and that's it, or it was kind of this 90s utopian thing. But I think what hopefully you know what I tried to capture is essentially like the power of dance music, the power of being together, and the kind of ripple effect that has on the kind of wider sense of like just friends in general and what like wider groups of people.
Yeah, societal.
Yeah.
And, you know, I guess you sort of touched on it being sort of in lockdown, so was most of this sort of the idea, the filming, was it done during the pandemic?
So we started filming and then we went into lockdown. So it was like we'd been developing the idea for a while, and then suddenly we're kind of like, you know, you're faced with this challenge where, you know, you can't really go anywhere. You can't. I mean, it kind of it put a lot more rules on what you can and can't do, essentially. But as it's interesting because when you make a film, sometimes it's like you go to the supermarket and you get the ingredients for like a lasagna, and then you get home and then you start making it and realizing you're making something different now, and you kind of like it's always going to have like the same initial thoughts behind it, but it kind of like morphs, and as coronavirus like obviously like got more and more intense as we were working, the ideas changed and the way we were looking at things changed, and that's not necessarily a good or bad thing. It's just kind of how it happened.
And I guess you kind of have to really go with it and respond to it and react to it. We had so many questions in, shout out to Yasso and Data Vismo, about the archive footage. They were like, were you there? Did you really capture it? I'm thinking, guessing from your age, I don't think you were really there. But how did you get it? How did you source it?
No, I'm 45.
Looking great.
I sourced it. A friend of mine, we had a team of people working on it, but I do quite a lot of work in archive footage anyway. It's kind of like been my job since I was like at uni. So like I watch a lot of archive footage, and I also I watched a lot of footage for this, and like it was just great. I mean, it was just like it didn't really feel like work, just kind of like trawling through hours and hours of like this kind of stuff, because it's not only do you hear like, I mean, that's where I heard the Jimmy Polo tune, Better Days, which has been remade by Dance System, that you can hear at the end of the film. I found that on a piece of archive from an Ipswich rave, and it's like you just keep hearing this music, and then like seeing like the differences in like how people dance back then. Like you can like
really dance.
Yeah, it's like the movements are like so like severe. They're so like big and like free, and like it's like it's crazy. I just try and like, yeah, it's really nuts. But yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing that it's all properly filmed.
Does that make you think of your job in a different light, knowing how important it is to document stuff? That the fact that you could see Ipswich back then, does it make the work that you do now feel even more important?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess like I'm not sure. It's a difficult one. I don't know if I ever feel like what I'm doing is super important. I feel like it's like it's just great. I guess it's like, but it's definitely important. But I'm not sure of that when I'm doing it. If you see what I mean.
Like a self-importance, yeah, of course, yeah. One of my favourite scenes, and I nudged you during it, is the bedroom scene when the girl gets home, and then all the different parts of the furniture basically start to build a song, and it's just a great piece of abstract art, basically. How did that idea come about?
I'm pretty sure it just happened to me. Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure it just happened to me. I got back from a rave when I was a teenager, and I hadn't been to bed in quite a long time, and I got in the bath, and the drips and stuff like that were making different hi-hat patterns, and then like my mum slamming the door was like just creating a kick drum, and then I'd written a short film script about a psychiatrist who has a mental breakdown during an interview, and the whole room turns into this kind of deranged orchestra. But I kind of married the two ideas in my head, and then a friend of mine who actually runs this club next door is a good friend with Sam Ploy, so he put us in touch, and he created the music for it, and then we shot to the music.
Wow, like a music video almost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we drew the I just drew some storyboards to Sam's music, and then we just shot it like that. But yeah, it was good.
So for a documentary like this, sound is really important. Having like a great sound design behind it was important to you.
Yeah, 100%. I love sound. I think I started out as doing music tech at uni, and I did some sound design for some films, and like it's such a nice thing to do, and it can really change the meaning of like certain things. But yeah, I think it's super important. Probably more so in narrative things, less documentary. But yeah, I've always been a big fan of sound.
I think everything married together with the visuals, I think it just kind of adds to the experience of watching it. I'm going to take you out of the hotspot for a minute, but we do have some more questions coming for you.
No worries.
But TSHA, Afrodeutsche, watching that, I mean, what sort of feelings does it arouse in you, like watching a documentary like that, or what sort of light bulb moments go off in your head?
Makes me want to go out.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I really missed this.
Yeah.
Like, just missed these faces, these bodies, and these dance moves. You know, it's like, it just made me miss it and realise that I didn't realise how much I missed it, to be honest. I think I was a bit consumed with everything else that was going on and just didn't realise.
I think also even with the kind of archive footage, I wasn't there, but I feel like it was kind of nostalgic for me. I'm like, I'm thinking, I miss that, and I was never there.
It was like pre and post, isn't it? That's like how the world once was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely, it was very beautiful to watch, you know, especially the scene with the girl on the bed. I was like really impressed with that. Like, I was like, wow, that really encapsulates that kind of that feeling when you get home from the rave and like you can still hear the music and you're kind of like still in that state. And to see it kind of manifest there, I thought it was really amazing. So wicked.
Well done. I mean, both of you are producers. You know, you mentioned in the doc, you're like, there was elements of inspiration that you take from the old school and the 90s rave culture. Was there like a kind of journey that you went on? Did someone give you a tape? Did you know have an older sibling? Did you go to a rave? Like, what was your sort of instance in hearing this sound?
It was actually great when we filmed this because I got taken back to how I got into rave. I was slightly too young, so I had my best friend. I'm going to name check Rachel Pittman.
Big up Rachel.
She was my best friend at school, and I would stay at her house and pretend that we were having a sleepover, and she'd go to parties. But then she'd bring back like these mixtapes of the parties and the flyers, and I would listen to raves on headphones. Wow. I was like 10, you know, and it was like I was there because they were recorded at these, you know, these spaces, these free parties, and I was hooked from that moment. It was like rave was my life, but I wasn't going to these parties, like physically being there. It was like sonically, it was everything.
I know that feeling. I remember going to stay with my cousin. She'd always be getting ready to go raving, and I'd be like,
I want to go.
Do I look nice? I'd be like, maybe. But I really, 10 years old, I really want to go.
Yeah.
What about you, Tisha?
Well, my older brother was a DJ, so
Wow.
when he was 18, he had decks set up in our living room. It was like booming all weekend, and I was unable to watch Kenan and Kel, so I was forced to listen to it. But I fell in love with it. I was always dancing around the living room. My mum was big into going out to raves. She told me about seeing like Carl Cox in a field and all this stuff, and like she always talked to me about parties. So I was so excited to turn 18 because I was like desperate to like dance all night, because that's all she described me. She's like, it's great, there's bass, there's this, like you dance all night, everyone's together, and I was like, I can't wait for this. So it's basically been in my life since I was about 4, like the idea of rave culture and DJing and going out.
And then I guess, like, for you guys, when you think about how that manifests in your music, and they sort of touch on the James Brown break and the Eamon break, how do you take those elements but then kind of give it like a fresh perspective on it?
That's a really big question. I guess, like, with all sort of genres of music, when you love music and you love sound, you inherit a lot of things. Things that you sort of create out of this history of music. It's not necessarily that you draw directly from those things in every instance. It's sometimes you might be watching a film and there's something inspires you from that. And so I feel like it's more of an inherited sound that I have of rave, because I've tried making strict rave and I can't do it. It's like it's something that I don't know how to do. But the elements in my work do have a nod and tip my hat to rave, breaks and grooves and one-fingered bass lines, and so I think it feels like it's more of an inherited thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar for me. I think my music's so different, I guess, but at the same time, I'm still using some of those old instruments like the 303 and the 909, and those elements like seep into the music, and I can feel nostalgic about it. I can see how they're connected, but then at the same time, they're very different. I'm a bit softer with it.
Yeah, a bit ambient.
Yeah.
I did a mix recently, and I was doing like new school rave versus old school rave. And when I was looking at the new school part, a lot of the producers that I was drawing for were actually overwhelmingly female.
Wow.
From the UK, and I thought that was really interesting. Like, if I'm going to be like India Jordan to Anne's to yourselves, it was like never ending. It felt good. Why do you think? Where do you think that's come from? Is it a coincidence?
Yeah,
I don't know. It feels like it might just be a coincidence.
Yeah.
But I feel like I inherited the love or the interest from my mum, and as a woman as well.
Maybe
So I
our
don't-
mum,
Yeah,
the mums were
You
raving.
got it
Yeah.
from a female
Yeah.
friend. I don't know.
My mum. It was
Oh,
my
your
mum. My mum and my aunt. My aunt was a big raver, and music, like everything, was from my mum's record collection. I mean, I stole Adonis from my mother.
Oh, wow.
It's like, but this was my mum's record collection, so it was kind of.
Yeah, even like I knew about Jungle when I was about 4 or 5. I knew because it was playing in my house, and my mum was the one that said, "That's Jungle," and I was like, "Oh, I like this!" Like I was just dancing around.
I could just see you raving. I see you as a 4-year-old in your living room.
Yeah.
I want to bring you all back into the fold now and kind of look at some of like the societal and sort of, drawing some parallels between then and now. Sort of based off of what we know about 30 years ago, where the world was at politically, economically, based on where we're at now. Do you feel like that is why we've had a resurgence? Because there is a need or a want from people.
Definitely. I think Luke Unabomber mentions it in the documentary about, if society is going through some terrible times, it's almost like music is the translator. It's the way that humans are able to process their environment, process their emotions, process their, place in society. It's almost like you can create something that you have absolute control over and just give it away, and you'll know that other people can relate. And I think it's kind of like the freedom of this genre of music was that it was about just having that freedom. There were no rules. It was like the most reckless, like sampling vibe ever, but it was like sensational, and it was freedom. It was like there aren't these rules. We're living outside of the rules as much as we can.
So then knowing that innately as humans we need it, and we naturally do it, then why do you think there's this like disdain for it from the powers that be that were then and that are now, like the finger pointing, the exposing, the sensationalizing of all these crazy parties?
It's tough.
Fear.
Yeah, I guess.
Fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
And you can't. It's very it's very difficult to control and monetize and make anything out of absolute sort of when nothing is organized. If you can't control that, it's like it has to end, it has to stop. We can't do anything with it, and it's just powerful, isn't it? It's like mobilizing 20,000 people. I love that.
Yeah,
line.
not even a
one
WhatsApp.
number. Yeah,
That's like a phone box.
mobilizing 20,000 people. I mean, that's something to be afraid of if you don't understand what it is.
Of course. I mean, what were some of the things that came up for you that maybe you, Hugo, didn't know about rave culture? Was there anything that you really felt like you learned through the process of making this doc?
Yeah. I think what I found really interesting was like what we were just talking about. Was it a conscious thing where people like knowingly like pushing back against things that they didn't like? Was it like knowingly like super rebellious and all this kind of stuff? And like Luke Unabomber was kind of saying, like, he said something quite funny where he was like, yeah, I was off my tits for the whole thing. We had no idea what we were doing, but it just ended up being this like insane kind of movement. But I found, I mean, on the journey to researching, I've read tons of stuff that like completely blew my mind, especially about the SAS getting involved with Brixton Academy and like all sorts of like mad stories going on where like the kind of the illegal drug trade just kind of kicking off at the time that like rave was kicking off at the same time. And it's like there's a whole nother film there, basically.
Yeah.
It's like it's insane. It's just like suddenly, people who were just dormant before were now making like. I mean, I think in a month, I think the ecstasy sold in Brixton Academy is about £1 million. So before you were just dealing with like security firms, and now suddenly there was just this insane amount of money.
Wow.
But also like. Speaking to people like Terry Farley as well was great. He just like when he says in the film like none of us thought this was going to last longer than a year. That's when I saw that kind of when we were cutting, and I saw that, I was like, it's really difficult to get across what something's like. But when I actually imagined that, I was like, fuck, that actually does sound really intense.
Yeah, partying for your life. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
It's just like that kind of like crazy, like this is insane level of belief as well, and like it just sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so proud to be British when it comes to music, music and rave culture. Like, I'll go anywhere around the world, be like, hey, you know about drum bass garage, in the smoking court, Why do you think, the UK has this this really respected, often imitated sort of club culture?
That's so funny. Yeah, I don't know. Do you know,
Sorry, I just
because
looked at
we
you
just
and nodded.
like,
With me.
we make good music, I think, and there could be a million things that could led to that. I guess maybe it's always grey here, and maybe we needed stuff to like cheer ourselves up, so we were more busy at making beats. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't be able to put one single thing on why we pop off in the club culture.
Yeah. What's the best city for raving?
Oh, that's tough.
Especially when we think about like the raves that we've seen, maybe some of the raves that are happening now, or underground. Where's the best city?
I think before the pandemic, it's like biased Manchester.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, Manchester
Yeah,
is
I was
amazing.
gonna say Manchester.
There's something really special about how people in Manchester like to party and rave. It's like, it's serious. It's it's work, but there's this real sense of connection every time there is a party. People want to come back to that party, and they know that they'll have the same energy at the next one, or it will be a slightly different version of it. But it's almost like you leave feeling like the next one, you don't want to miss it. You want to be part of that thing again, that energy and that vibe. And I think venues closing and opening up in much, more random spaces helped that vibe and helped that energy, because you felt like you were doing something illegal, but you weren't, because it was all licensed, but you might be in a garage somewhere.
Like we are today.
Yeah, I totally put that in there. Yeah.
And you've been to Bristol, spent some time in Bristol, and documented the scene there. And that's another kind of key city for me when you think about rave culture, going against the rules and living on the edge.
Yeah. Bristol's amazing. I think it's a really difficult question. There's so many different strands to it. There's so many different things as to why the UK historically makes such good music. But I think there's a bit of an edge to the UK, like in terms of like we tend to we don't have a terrible time, but we have like a little bit. We're not as kind of I don't know, European cities like Berlin and stuff like that. I think it's slightly harder to live in London, places like that, and I think through that like slight kind of harshness, I think you get a lot of people like pushing stuff forward, and obviously there's just like it's massively multicultural here as well, which is like a huge part of it. But Bristol's a similar thing. We went there, tried to figure out why Bristol music's so weird and always has been like so, and it's just like, again, it's a lot of it's to do with the kind of immigration stuff, sounds of like dub sounds, kind of like people hearing different things, different places, and it was just like meshes together. So I think it's kind of what we have now in London, I reckon. Yeah. Just everything.
They say it takes like 30 years for something to be seen as golden and to be revered, and you kind of are seeing that with, when we see Tim Reaper and he does like a new but old jungle set, we're seeing it with obviously the rave music, amount of young producers who were kind of even born in the 2000s that are making this music. So if we think about this decade that we're in, 2020 to 2030, 30 years on, what will people take from us, and what will be revered, and what inspiration will they find?
I don't know if you can say that now, really, because I don't think people really realise it until it's gone. Like, I don't think people, when they're in it, know that they're in something special. It's like, it's when it's gone and then they miss it and they're like, oh wait, I had like this was happening and this song came out and this, and my era was the best era, because everyone thinks that their era is the best era. And it's like, I don't know, for me at the moment I'm like, oh, I really wish we were like the 90s, or they were so cool, they had so much fun. But then I bet when I get like 10 years from now, I'll probably be like, oh, they wish they were like the 2000s, or they were like this, or you know what I mean? So I guess it's hard to know until it's gone.
Yeah. Anyone want to add to that?
Technology.
Technology.
It's like, you know, the 909, 303, it was like, that was the height of technology. And, you know, this genre used these tools in a bonkers kind of way. Like, you know, people weren't classically trained. So it was, you know, just grassroots kind of vibe. And I'm like fascinated to know what technology we'll have in 30 years' time. I mean, like what? Like, I don't know. Everything virtual reality, and, you know, your whole studio is in front of your face with like not even wearing goggles. It's like some contact lens. I don't know. But it's like, I think technology's got a lot to do with what will happen. Will people be striving to use, you know, versions 10 of certain doors, and you know, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think technology is going to make a big difference.
And Hugo, your job is to look forward and always also to look back. So for you as a filmmaker, what do you think people will look back at some of your work and be like, the way he edited this, and you know?
I don't think so. Not yet, anyway. I don't know. Cinema seems to be one of those things that, I don't know, it's just consistently good. I think a lot of people like get into talk about 3D stuff and like that and everything like that, but I don't know anyone who's actually interested in doing it, or VR and stuff like that. I don't know. Any of your mates have 3D glasses at home?
No,
you know
my
what I mean?
little sister and cousins, but I don't think it's really 3D, but yeah.
It's almost like, it's kind of there. So hopefully it doesn't get too crazy.
Well, I've loved chatting to you guys, and I'm going to be chatting to TSHA and Afrodeutsche more about their music, so keep your questions coming in. If you just joined us, you're like, what are they talking about? What's going on? I've missed the documentary. You can watch it anytime on Amazon Music UK. But we're going to raid over to the Beatport channel for an after party and amazing sets from Afrodeutsche, Dance System, TSHA and Tim Reaper. Can we get some noise in here? It's happening. Get your drinks in. Turn your living room lights off. Afrodeutsche, you need to go and set up, please. Yeah, go and set up, and we're going to be partying in just a minute, so stay with us, please.